Okay, so you're definitely going to be having a unity element when you're somebody who truly believes that the ceremony is the highlight of your day. I'm a wedding officiant. I have a team of ministers. We believe in that, okay? But I also understand that not everyone does.
All right. So today we have Angie Kelly from Peachy Keen Unions with us on the show. And we are going to talk about unity elements specifically for ceremonies. So we're just going to jump right in. Angie, what is a unity element?
A lot of couples come from the background of, they've seen their parents and their grandparents do traditional marriage ceremonies. And within a traditional marriage ceremony, whether it be a church or a banquet hall, oftentimes you have become accustomed to seeing a unity candle, or as we moved into like the late 90s, 2000s, it was the sand blending, right? And even if there was children involved or parents, they could come forth and we blend a little bit of you and a little bit of me. And once those grains are intertwined, they can't be separated. That's kind of premise with that. And then the unity candle has a similar preference of background of like joining two flames together, but it also has a bit of a religious influence. So that's probably what you've seen in the past. Couples who are moving forward to have contemporary and modern day ceremonies don't really want to do the same unity elements their parents and their grandparents did.
Right.
So we're seeing different stuff these days.
Yeah, I've definitely seen more recently like a tree planting.
Yeah.
Whiskey, that seems to come up maybe for you, whiskey mixing
Whiskey
or
blending
something.
is really fun. That's something, I'm not going to say I'm the pioneer of it, but we certainly were probably the first to see this happening in Las Vegas, researching and writing it. So unity elements are when you're carving out an identity for you and your spouse, and you want to sort of do this in a ceremonial ritual way. So this would be the part typically right before the vows or right after the vows, where you step aside, your minister or your officiant will gesture, right? And then you have some sort of setup. And again, like we spoke of, instead of the archaic unity candle or sand blending, now we're having things like whiskey blending or cocktail unity. And they can get really intricate. And it's really about if the couple has time to do it within their ceremony, the allotted ceremony space. And for me, it's drilling it down to what represents them best and can have that identity piece. So when somebody comes to us and we're doing consultation for a full-scale ceremony, and they say, I want to do that candle thingy, or that wine thingy, or that wishing stone thingy, I'm like, whoa, let's dial it back. Because if it's a thingy, it might not be something that's perfect for you.
Right. It's not necessarily something, I think people, like you said, it's like a traditional element. You don't have to do it.
Don't even have to have one.
Don't have to have one at all. You can still totally get married without a unity element.
Yeah, you can totally get married without a unity element. And a lot of contemporary ceremonies are ditching them. All right. Okay. But if you are a couple that really likes to include something like that, then it's important to me and all of our officiants that we interview and figure out what that is. So it's not a thingy. All right. So maybe you came to us and you thought you wanted to do the wine thingy or the sand thingy, but we end up leaving with something that has a more modern twist. So for example, on a sand unity, if somebody says that that's really important and that's the aesthetic that they're really drawn to seeing at the altar, say, okay, how did you grow up? Did you grow up on different coasts? How did you meet? Was it a mountain situation? Was it a desert situation? And, one of the best examples of this is we had an East Coast bride and a West Coast groom, and they each brought sand from those respective beaches, and they brought those in. And then because we're based in Vegas, they took some of the earth from like Red Rock Canyon and they layered that. So it was the two of them kind of reflecting how they were becoming one, but doing so in a really interesting way for the guests.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's what's important. Don't just throw it in just because you feel like you have to, basically, and kind of creating something that is unique to you and maybe thinking outside the box, which it sounds like is something that your minister or officiant kind of takes the lead on, or, that's what you guys do anyway.
We really do have to prompt people, because sometimes they'll come with their Pinterest pages, which is great because that's a good starting point for us. Like, oh, okay, what were you drawn to aesthetically? But let's make sure that it has meaning. So one of my favorite things that I've had a lot of couples do is cocktail blending. And it's so adorable because we really work with the wedding planner and the stylist, which is something to know as well. I mean, if you're going into this, this is an added expense to your wedding day. All right, because listen to this one. Here you go. We have this, we say our vows, and then we want to do the unity piece where we have a little bar cart come out to the altar. And it's, you know, you can't just like set liquor on a bar cart. You got to style it, right? So that means your florist has to bring in a few little pieces and doodads. Right. So, you know, you don't just leave the whiskey in the big vodka bottle. No, you're going to pour it into a little cute crystal decanter, you know. There's setups and supplies lists with this. So if this is something that you're considering, you have to know that we're going to like rope your wedding planner into a packing list for you. You're gonna have to put some thought into this, get a few supplies. So you got to be invested in wanting it, you know?
Right. How much time does it actually take of your ceremony?
Oh, at your ceremony, it probably only takes about 3 minutes.
Oh.
And, you know, whenever we're talking about how long something takes within a ceremony, it seems like, oh, vows, 30 seconds each. That's so short, or that's so long. It's really not. If you want to pause right now for 30 seconds of silence, you'll see like it's a decent amount of time. So when you have 20 minutes slated, you know, for a speaking portion of a ceremony, and we're going to use 3 of that for a unity element, 3-4 of that for a unity element. We're going to use, you know, 3 maybe for vows. And then we have the walking in, the dad, you know, dad might be passing somebody off. Like each of those segments add up in the end. So you probably are only seeing 3 to 4 minutes of this interaction, but it is going to take you a lot of time at Home Goods and Amazon Cart, you know, to like be putting together all your little crystal decanters. But the cocktail unity is a great one. Sometimes couples can base it on the cocktail that they first shared together. You know, if they met at an airport or they met at a party. They can make that cocktail together and then also serve it at reception as the signature cocktail, you know, when everyone kind of moves over to cocktail hour. So having that flow over is really great. Same thing with any kind of unity elements. If you're going to do a whiskey blending at the altar, it leads to really good party favors then, because you can give your little signature bottles of whiskey then. So I really like that it's a, you know, it's a real good tie-in and takes that theme all the way.
Right. Yeah, I think that's awesome. Now let's actually talk about, I mean, my company focuses primarily on elopements and micro weddings. Let's talk about how and if, or, you know, basically, should you include a unity element, or what can be the expectations in including a unity element in a micro wedding or an elopement? You know, much smaller scale and much less time, maybe.
We might have a more condensed budget. It's not necessarily a smaller budget, but the budgets for micro weddings, scenic weddings, they're just rearranged differently. Right. For instance, for couples that are tuning in now, your portion of transportation might be bigger. So you might have to cut out things like favors or unity elements, right? Because instead of people taking their cars, you're putting everyone on a bus and taking them out to a scenic spot. So it's not necessarily that budgets are smaller when you're dealing with scenic or micro weddings, but they are rearranged. You can't take that. Yeah, you can't take that classic, you know, if everyone logs on to brides.com right now, you can find that pie chart infographic that has the slices that says you need 20% for your musician and 10% for your invites. And it doesn't work like that actually for micro weddings. And that's maybe something we need to publish and get out there, is the money is allocated differently. So the expectation then has to adjust. Not only is the money allocated differently in micro weddings that are smaller, but your time frame might be different at the venue. And certainly your ceremony expectations should be a little bit different. It's pretty rare that we would get somebody who had a micro wedding, so that's 50 guests or less, 30 guests or less, depending on who you're asking, who says, I want to go all out for a full-scale custom bespoke ceremony. Well, chances are the 30 people who you invited are really close to you. They know your story, your history, your background, your heritage. They don't really need that replayed. Those full-scale bespoke ceremonies, you know, those are brought in when we've got 150, 200 guests who don't know you each intimately, and they need to hear that history and that love story and that customization part. So I think it's realistic to say that the ceremonies are shorter, they're briefer, and they really don't allow for a lot of unity elements. They don't allow for things that have live flame and that sort of custom portion
Right.
falls into a different price category for ceremonies. So we don't really see that.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Let's say, you have a package that's 90 minutes and it includes your ceremony and photography time. You do have to consider if you want to have that unity element. Well, Angie said it's only 3 minutes. It really is, it would be easily 30 minutes of your allocated 90-minute time. Anyway, 45 probably. Right.
By the time you add it into this ceremony, yeah, because you also have to have setup time. So someone's gonna have to come set your bar cart up. Somebody's gonna have to connect, right? So if your vendors aren't allowed into your venue until 90 minutes or the 2-hour mark, and now they've got to spend 20 minutes on setting up your bar cart unity element and any matching favors or something like that, it's just not necessarily reasonable.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So we don't really see a lot of unity elements or guest speakers, poems, paragraphs, songs. We don't see that in a micro wedding. It's micro and less stress for a reason.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Well, actually, I mean, I feel like that was tons of great information on unity elements. Let's just do a little recap. When you would have a unity element, why, and when you would not. Maybe that's the wrap up.
Okay, so you're definitely going to be having a unity element when you're somebody who truly believes that the ceremony is the highlight of your day. I'm a wedding officiant. I have a team of ministers. We believe in that, okay? But I also understand that not everyone does. Some people love the party aspect. Some people like the scenic aspect, right? Everyone has their party. So if you're somebody whose emphasis is on the ceremony and that's so special to you, and you want to nail that verbiage and make sure everything's custom, unity elements for you. Your partner is really into the visual aspect that we can include it in your photo story, right? And then you're going to want a unity element. If you have time, if you have a venue, if you have a wedding planner, how often do I send over packing lists to brides and they say, oh, I've changed my mind on that unity element. It was kind of like I had to bring like 10 things.
Right.
So you have to be somebody who's really committed to having it. And it's probably not best for a micro wedding and certainly not an elopement.
Right. And then also it is certainly not for somebody that doesn't really care. Like you do not have to have a unity element, like as we've explored. It's just something that it's another one of those wedding things that just kind of like gets pushed along like, oh yeah, you got to do this. You got to have this in your little checkbooks. But we're kind of out of that.
You gotta have a flower girl. You gotta have a
let's scratch all of those things with micro weddings, right?
Traditional weddings,
right?
And you're right. It's things that people come into and say like, "Well, did I have to have one of those?" Oh no, you don't have to have one of those at all. You're only going to have one of those if that's something that's really important and you're invested in, and you're willing to do, drill it down and make it meaningful. But you do not have to have a ring bearer. You do not have a flower girl. You do not have to have a unity element to make your day comprehensive.
Great. Well, I think that's actually all the questions I have about unity elements. Thank you so much for agreeing to do an episode with me, and I'm sure we'll see you around on the show.
Absolutely. And if you want to get really great examples of these and start your research prior to hiring your minister, you certainly can come to my Pinterest page. The handle is Peachy Keen Unions, and you can see I have them all broken down, wishing stones, oathings, you got them all. So you can kind of get an idea before you start planning.
Yeah, and that's PEACHY. Yep. Right. Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Angie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.